Hey, how's it going? I want to talk about internal rotation and how it applies to pressing, benching, and doing push-ups specifically. Internal rotation is bad, and it's when you're doing a bench or a push-up, it's bad because it would have the shoulder internally rotating, and then the elbows kind of flare out. And the reason that's bad is because it puts a lot of stress on the shoulder joint, does not distribute it around the musculature that it should, in this case the pectorals, and then it reduces the tightness on the shoulder. So how would tightness increase when you're not internally rotated? In other words, when you're more externally rotated? It's because the first thing is the external rotators. They go into contraction when you're externally rotated. So this position does not have the external rotators involved in it, whereas this position has externally rotated a little bit, and so that musculature, in other words, the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, teres major, those have now contracted to the point where they're going to be a little tight. Also, what happens is that the internal rotators of the shoulder are now stretched out. And so when you go down, when in external rotation, the internal rotators are stretched. Now, what's one of the big internal rotators? The lat. And that's why people will talk about the lats being involved in the bench press. It's not that the lat makes the bar go up. The lat's a shoulder extensor, which is this. So shoulder flexion or abduction is not going to be assisted by the lat. But what is going on is when you're in proper external rotation, the lat is being stretched out. And that's analogous to when you're doing a squat, the hamstrings are getting stretched out on the way down in a squat, and they're going to extend the hip on the way up. So it's analogous to that when you're benching correctly with external rotation, the lat is stretched out, which helps improve the security around the joint. So with that all being said, we want to have a little external rotation in the bench, which would look more like this as opposed to this. And then in the press, we wouldn't want this with a bar, we'd want more of this with a bar. Because this is internal rotation, and this is external rotation compared to the internal rotated position. And so now I want to bring all that home and talk about the push-up specifically. So a hand position on the ground like this is naturally going to put you in a position of external rotation when going down because the fingers are in. And so a lot of females will have problems with doing push-ups as a result of this. Well, that's because of the lack of musculature they might have built up from not doing it correctly. So had they been doing it correctly or trained correctly to begin with, they would have had the musculature in order to do this. But they're compensating for a lack of musculature. So obviously the fix is to turn the hand in. So a good cue is to have your fingers not pointed up, but pointed out to the 1 o'clock and the 11 o'clock position. So instead of this, which can still facilitate some internal rotation on a push-up, we're going to turn the pointer fingers, the index fingers, to the 1 o'clock and the 11 o'clock position. And so the way that's going to look on the ground, here, the first, I'll do it from two different angles. Here is fingers in position, and fingers in position. Here's fingers straight position with a little bit of internal rotation. Here it is from this angle. Now what I'm going to do is take my fingers and put them in the 1 and 11 o'clock position and do push-ups from here. Now from the side. And now you can tell that there's a difference in what my shoulder is doing here as opposed to here. So that's basically the difference in internal rotation at the bottom like this and a little bit of external rotation, which is going to be tighter on the shoulder joint, but also facilitate the musculature that is supposed to be involved in a push-up. So the 1 and 11 o'clock cue is a cue you could use with women for push-ups.